Welcome to the Pit Check, your weekly news for the best new releases from your favorite extreme metal and hardcore bands. Okay, so this week, even after narrowing down my list of new releases, there were 53 new albums that were all worth talking about. So I'm gonna do my best here on this episode to try and cover a bunch of them. I tried to keep it a good mix of metalcore, death metal, deathcore, prog, hardcore punk, you know? But at the end of this episode, I will have the full list of the 53 albums and give you a couple of my honorable mentions. So like always, subscribe to the channel and let's get right into this week's best and heaviest new albums. Need some incredible Deathgaze?
These gays, they're trying to murder me.
No, not that. Kardashev makes some absolutely gorgeous music by fusing together shoegaze, death metal, and even a little bit of deathcore. This is a new album from these guys titled Alunea, and once again, they have absolutely delivered. It's dark and haunting, yet beautiful and heart-wrenching, and it'll build to this crescendo of like a heavy, atmospheric, and crushing breakdown. The vocalist is also known for his Cardavox Vocal Academy videos, where he discusses how to properly and safely do a lot of these really insane vocal techniques. And he'll go into specific detail about what bands are doing to achieve these sounds. So it should be no surprise then that the vocals on this album are insane. Like on their previous album, Liminal Right, Kardashev have found their groove and how much they want to balance the gnarly, harsh vocals with the powerful, operatic, clean vocals. And of course, the instrumentals on here are as technical and impressive as ever. The guitars are shredding and soloing, and the drummer is like running a marathon non-stop on the double bass. Don't get me wrong, again, I love the vocals on here, but I would love an instrumental version of this album. It's beautiful. Again, that was Kardashev with this amazing new album, Alunea. Need some amazing French metalcore? The Marseille-based Landmarks have been exploding lately, and this is their highly anticipated new album, The Darkest Place I've Ever Been. I was on the water, wasn't trying to find a way to breathe, and I would never forget that the pain is just the way I feel. I'm looking for a better place, looking for a better chance to receive this support. I'm genuinely obsessed with the way that they incorporate French rapping into their metalcore. It's such a unique characteristic for them to have, and the way that they incorporate it into their metalcore and nu metal elements is literally seamless. Songs like Blood Red, Creature, and La Valse du Temps show just how much this band is trying to push the boundaries of modern metalcore. The rapping, the beautiful and melodic guitar melodies, the massive breakdowns, and those emotional and catchy as hell choruses. There's also an awesome feature, really a duet, from Matt Welsh of the band While She Sleeps. If you're a fan of post-hardcore and metalcore, I'm sure you've already been eagerly awaiting this album. But if you've never heard of these guys, I highly recommend checking out this new album, and of course going through their discography, and definitely check them out live if you get a chance. Contact the scars and contact the process! Do you want a heavy band for heavy times? Employed to Serve is an awesome crossover genre mashup band that fuses together metalcore, groove metal, and death metal, and they're celebrating their 10th anniversary with this new album, Fallen Star. Their sound is surprisingly heavy and emotional and kinda sad, but then comes in with these moments of catharsis and ends up in these uplifting and positive resolutions, with vocalist Justine Jones calling this album the soundtrack to venting your frustrations and finding strength through aggression. Employed to Serve has tons of powerful and groovy riffs, monumental breakdowns, and extremely catchy hooks. This album also includes an incredible feature from Will Ramos of Lorna Shore, where he gets to show off both his obviously amazing harsh vocals and his surprisingly smooth clean vocals, which is something he's been doing on his personal channel, kind of flexing his singing chops a little bit. But here it's awesome to see him do it on an actual track. So if you need some extremely emotionally resonating new music, check out the band Employed to Serve and their newest album, Fallen Star. Want something brutal, fast, and stupid fun? Same. Coffin Feeder is a brutal death metal / beatdown hardcore project that incorporates 80s horror and action movies into their insane death grind sound. And they've got this hilariously heavy new album, Big Trouble. Coffin Feeder is a bit of a supergroup made up of German underground heavy hitters, featuring members from Aborted, Langshi, and Freddie Mercury. Which is probably why, despite the silly and self-aware theme, this band is unbelievably talented. This album is ridiculously well produced, with some of the best sounding instrumentals I've ever heard on an album like this. Loaded with tasty riffs, shredding guitars, symphonic strings and harmonies, and tons of death grind chaos. Deathcore and slam fans should also check this one out, because these breakdowns are disgustingly heavy. And I don't know if you're like me at all, but as someone who loves over-the-top and crazy 80s movies, and especially like midnight grindhouse movie marathons, this is like all my favorite worlds colliding. If you want some brutal, crushing death metal, but also want to have a ton of lighthearted fun, check out the album Big Trouble by Coffin Feeder. Metalcore fans are feasting this year.
So who can come and save me now? Standing on the edge.
The iconic German metalcore band Caliban is back with this new album, Back from Hell. Caliban seem to really want to return to their heavier roots for this album, with vocalist Andreas Dorner describing this as, quote, their heaviest record in a decade, and the band saying they wanted to merge their signature emotional melodies with their early era unrelenting heaviness. There's also some really awesome features on this album, like Joe Bad and Fit for an Autopsy, as well as The Browning and even Mental Cruelty, which all lend their styles perfectly into these more deathcore-leaning breakdowns that are prevalent on this release. If you like bands like Heaven Shall Burn or Bleeding Through, or even some extent Architects, bands that like to mix aggressive riffs and atmospheric harmonies with powerful and emotional hooks, then this will be right up your alley.
Rise from the ashes, back from the darkness.
If you've never heard of the band Caliban, or you're a fan of their earlier work, then you should definitely check out this new album, Back from Hell. Ever heard Celtic death metal? Eluveitie is an incredibly unique band, blending folk metal, death metal, and traditional Celtic instruments into an epic and massive sound. This is Eluveitie's 9th studio album, titled Env, and it marks their first album in 6 years, so fans have been waiting to get their hands on this one. While this album might not be as heavy as some of their previous work, the songwriting on this album is nothing short of masterful. The way they're able to perfectly balance their driving guitars, death metal riffs and solos, and even breakdowns with these extremely emotional, powerhouse choruses. I also love the addition of these traditional Celtic instruments like the fiddle, bagpipe, and even the hurdy-gurdy. Longtime fans of this band have been a little divided on this album, with some fans saying it's too safe or more of the same of their previous work, but I think they're kind of missing some subtleties on how much they've matured as songwriters, specifically with their transitions and the way they're able to blend all of their elements seamlessly and naturally, and it never feels like a gimmick having all these Celtic elements. I think this is a great entry point for this band, and if you want something a tiny bit heavier, you know, work backwards through their discography. But I do think this new album, Env, is a solid addition to their discography, and so I definitely recommend it if you're looking for something a little bit folky in your death metal. Are you missing some mathcore in your hardcore? Eyes is a chaotic mess of a band, and I swear to God I mean that as a compliment. And they have a new album out titled Spinner. If your life was missing some of those bands like The Chariot or Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza, this will finally fill that void. This has all of these screeching, groovy guitars, southern metal riffs, and absolute chaos that has been severely missing in the scene. Fun fact, this is actually a concept album, telling the story of a fictional 80s anime that explores the vocalist's own life and experiences. So his life story has become a fictional anime in the 80s, and this album tells the story of that 80s fictional anime. Easy, you get it. Eyes have stated they wanted this album to be, quote, short and intense, and capture the feeling of overcoming life's constant barrage of obstacles and even self-doubt. For example, the song Better is specifically about, quote, wanting to improve as a musician, as a band, as a person. But no matter what your intentions are, there will always be someone who wants to put you down, and sometimes that person is yourself. So if you want some off-the-walls and crazy, hardcore, noisy metalcore, mathcore, I highly recommend this new album Spinner by Eyes. Want some old-school New York hardcore?
Ready for war!
Brick by Brick is a New York Troycore band, which is this specific kind of old school hardcore metalcore hybrid. It's this Hatebreed kind of sound that's popular in the hardcore scene in Troy, New York. And they're back with this new EP, Collapse. If you like your hardcore punk with crushing metal riffs and aggressive as hell vocals, you've gotta check this one out.
From the shadows of old, rose from the dust.
This is some slow and tough as nails hardcore. Don't worry, you'll still be up-tempo and two-stepping here and there, but generally this whole EP is just sludgy and nasty.
Every past starting up like an endless poetry. My motorcycle nightmare ring out inside of me.
Brick by Brick has been relentless since 2004, so it's no surprise to hear that early 2000s metallic hardcore metalcore sound here. This album was mixed, mastered, and produced by Joey Z of Life of Agony, which of course adds to that sound, and the band loved working with him, saying, "Joey has pushed us and created a masterpiece in my opinion."
Watching, waiting, our fate.
This EP will make you want to fight a brick wall. I highly recommend this one for any early 2000s metalcore and hardcore lovers.
Suffocate, you're out of time.
Do you like your metal super proggy and weird? Changeling is an incredible experimental progressive groove metal death metal hybrid straight from the mind of Tom Geldschlager, aka Fountainhead, and they've just released their newest self-titled album. This is basically a supergroup, with Tom himself formerly being in Obscura and Defeated Sanity, but there's also former members of Fear Factory, Dark Fortress, Alkaloid, and more, all coming together to push death metal into uncharted territory. This album also features guest musicians anywhere from members from Trans-Siberian Orchestra, ex-members from Cynic and Death, The Faceless, and so many more. It would seriously take me like 15 minutes to list all of the talented people that worked on this album. This is seriously some of the most interesting and unique progressive metal I've ever heard. Each track is a musical journey, transcending genres or influences, and creating these gorgeous, epic, one-of-a-kind odysseys. If you like your songs to end miles away from where they started, or if you're game for sitting down for anywhere between 4 and 16-minute songs, I highly recommend checking out this new album by Changeling. Want some hardcore in your death metal? Or death metal in your hardcore? Wretched Blessing is a crazy good genre-bending new band from Chicago, and they've just put out this new EP, Psychic Barriers to Entry. This is just a two-piece band, consisting of only a drummer and guitarist that both do vocals, and yet they're able to make some of the freshest and most punishing death metal on the scene right now. They also include elements of grindcore and black metal to go along with their really impressive fusion of death metal and hardcore riffs. Wretched Blessing even called their own EP almost 17 minutes of massive doses of existential dread. I was a big fan of this EP. It's slow and melancholic when it wants to be, and it's up-tempo and two-stepping when it wants to be, and it's surprisingly heavy without being another copy-paste brutal death metal beatdown band. I highly recommend checking out Wretched Blessing and this new EP, Psychic Barriers to Entry. Okay, so like I said up top, there were like 100 albums that I had to cull through to get even this list of 53 albums. Machine Head put out a new album, but I figured since they have so much hype behind them, you probably would have already heard about it by the time this came out. Plus, I always like recommending some more deep cuts, but still, if you're into groove metal, check out Machine Head's newest album. I also really liked When Plagues Collide. They're kind of a Shadow of Intent, like a really symphonic deathcore band. Highly recommend that one as well. Deserted Fear also put out an awesome death metal album that I was enjoying but didn't get a chance to cover. Man, there's just so much here that's worth checking out, so definitely pause it. Anything that might tickle your fancy, please go check it out. I hope you give some of these a shot, along with the albums that we talked about today, obviously. And that's it for this week. Thanks again for watching the weekly roundup of albums, and I'll catch you next week for another pit check.